Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Luke F1 with Luke FF1 Fantasy, coming back at you with another video today. This one's probably going to be a more of a short and sweet one today, just to take a review of my team selection from last week, look at what the outcome of that was, and then looking through what might be available for us in Japan for our team selections. So without further ado, we're looking into the China team selection, which I have up on screen here. So this was the team that I eventually went from Australia to China with. It really was a one transfer change. I swapped out Jack Doohan for Oliver Bearman, ended up going with the team of McLaren, Williams, Lando Norris as my 2X, with Hawks, Stroll, Hajar, and Bearman. From the F1 Fantasy Tools website, we had predicted to get a 219 points with a budget increase of 1.7. And this team actually overperformed. So again, we ended up with 259 points and gaining a budget of 2.4 million. So that was largely part of the reasons why I went with a swap out from Doohan to Bearman, was more so to guarantee the 0.6 million increase, which ended up coming through for Ollie Bearman, and then got really lucky with some additional points that especially Ollie Bearman got, especially, and has as well, with the double disqualification of Charles Lewis and the Ferraris from the race. So that ended up giving me a bump in my global league. I went up to 33. I'm into the top 33,000, and with an overall team value of 102.8 million. Now, if you remember from my final team selection video right before deadline there, I was thinking about a second team. And then when I come back and look at this team now, it definitely seemed like it probably would have been the move to make. So there was a time last week where I was really considering the triple Haas build, for bringing in Haas for Williams, bringing in Bearman for Doohan, and bringing in Ocon for Hajar, with one of the main reasons being really just to try and get those two declining assets out of my team in Hajar and Doohan due to the DNF in Australia. So really focusing on a max budget building team. According to Fantasy Tools team calculator last week, this team would have predicted to get 216 points, so very similar to Team 1, but a predicted increase of 2.83 million. So the team actually did, again, outperform with reaching 293 points, and it would have achieved an extra 3.6 million in budget. So in comparison to the team that I did go with, I did miss out on an extra 1.2 million in budget gain and an extra 34 points. So while I didn't have the cojones to go ahead and put in a triple Haas build for reasons that we all know, it ended up being probably the team that I should have picked. So just wanted to have a little shout out to Haas for such a great weekend that they did. But nevertheless, we did see a bump in our team rank in the global leagues, as well as getting a good haul of points and seeing some budget increase. Now, one of the things we have learned following the China Grand Prix is that the price algorithm did have some changes in it. So once again, credit to all the smart minds in the F1 Fantasy Tools team, together with a lot of members that are sort of too many to mention at this moment in time in the Discord community. And so where prior to China, we were thinking that there was going to be a similar price increase algorithm. There did end up being some new thresholds that were introduced that likely going to be happening. So there was a jump up in the tier, in the categories needed to see price algorithm changes. So there's a lot of data on there. Some of it is just to make you aware that at the time of the recording last week, there was some unknown information. Now the information is known, and now we have a clearer picture of where things are. The second piece of that is prior to China, the thinking was that A tier and B tier assets, the cutoff being 20 million, that has now been recalculated to being 19 million. So unfortunately for an asset like Antonelli, he now pushes from a B tier into an A tier asset. So that will definitely have some implications to your team selections going forward. So ultimately for you as F1 Fantasy team owners, a lot of this math and data and formulas and calculations, a lot of that you don't need to keep in your mind as detailed as it looks on screen, but just sort of know that things are changing and there's going to be a different price point in Japan. Now, for those of you that want the quick and dirty information, then what we can do is look to the F1 Fantasy Tools website. And if you're not on there yet, I definitely would recommend. There are some free services available. There is also a subscription to their Patreon, which kind of gives you access to a little bit more detailed information, a bit more customizable information. But we're just going to go quickly take a look at what that would look like in terms of looking at your team for the next week. Okay, so this is the F1 Fantasy Tools website. What you're going to do is you're going to jump down to this tab here called Budget Builder and click on that. Now, what this Budget Builder will do is show you a snapshot of the points required by each particular driver or constructor that they need to hit in order to either see a price increase or price decrease. So if we take someone like Lando Norris in tier A here, he needs to score 7 points in Japan to see a max increase of 0.3 million in his value, which is a great improvement. And he can honestly absorb up to minus 47 points before he sees a decrease in the 0.3. So you can see that he's a pretty safe bet to more than likely increase in value next week. Similarly, for assets like your Hamilton Leclerc's, they're looking at needing to score 82 points or 92 points respectively in order to see a increase in 0.3. Now, if you really believe that Hamilton and Leclerc have the ability to score this many points, which is quite not that achievable in a normal weekend, then for sure put them in. But the likelihood is they have a very small chance of receiving this, so they are probably more likely going to see a decrease. So that's going to affect how you swap in and out your team for this week. So I'm going to be doing another video on this a little bit later in the week, kind of take some deep dives into some team makeups. But certainly this is a resource that I would highly recommend viewers to and F1 Fantasy managers to consult when you are picking your teams for the next race. Looking ahead as my early Japan team ideas, whether this is me trying to chase points now, I don't know, but I really feel that potentially looking into the triple Haas build really makes a lot of sense for Japan. Certainly from an F1 Fantasy perspective, looking at the assets, when we go back to the budget builder, we do see that Ocon, Behrman, and Haas, they have a great chance of increasing their budget by 0.6 million this week. Not only that, they did look pretty fast, and that midfield battle between Williams, Haas, Racing Bulls, potentially a little bit of Aston and Alpine mixed in there, it's getting to be quite a feisty midfield battle. So Japan being another sort of high-speed type of track, maybe similar to China, maybe the Haas looks good around that track as well. Of course, we will wait for the sims. But to get to this team, it would require me to make 2 transfers. I'd have to swap out Hajar for Ocon and swapping out Williams for Haas. I did carry over a transfer from Australia, so I'll also be rolling one into Bahrain as well. And this also gives me flexibility. I do have an extra transfer this week, so just in case I want to swap out my A-tier driver. If Norris isn't looking too good, or maybe not getting a good feel of Lando for Japan, then I do have the flexibility to pretty much bring in any other A-tier driver that week. More than likely, the one that I would probably go for is Piastri, but again, we'll sort of wait for the practice 1, practice 2 to see how things are going. At this moment in time, I'm not thinking about playing a limitless chip. Reason being is that I'm just still not too sure who that top second constructor is. It could be Mercedes, or could it be Ferrari, and do they just need to be better on their strategy? We really don't know. So I think I'm going to delay Limitless for another little bit, maybe probably look to use it in Miami for the next sprint weekend. But it's not looking like a slam dunk Limitless for me this week. In Wildcard, I'm not looking to make massive changes to this team. I'm not looking to take any -10 hits at this moment in time. So Wildcard's not really making any sense at this moment in time. Now, the important thing to look at is sort of what are we doing? Are we trying to get points, or are we trying to get budget? And so, this team again is predicted to likely get another, almost 3 million in budget again, which then, combined with potentially looking at some assets in Bahrain who now may be on the ascendant. These would be assets like Bortoleto, Hajar, Alonso, perhaps. Basically anyone who sort of DNF'd in Australia and who hasn't DNF'd since. So maybe Alonso's not quite in that category just yet, but they are going to be sort of under 5 million. So looking to Bahrain, I may look to bring in a Bortoleto and a Hajar, because they'll be cheaper assets, which is then going to free up some budget to, potentially look at getting into a single A-tier driver and a double A-tier constructor build, which formed a lot of the strong meta teams in the F1 fantasy season of last year, 2024. So those are some of my thoughts. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some more videos this week and next, trying to get some content out there. We're going to do some buy, hold, sell type videos on assets to help sort of decipher some of this information that is out there. But that does it for this one, and I look forward to catching you on the next one.